Hello, and welcome to the Smart Elections Election Protection Forum. This is a special forum that we're doing. It's a Halloween forum, and I'm She-Hulk, in case you couldn't tell. And we're going to have a contest for best election protection costume. We'll be voting by the end of the forum, so please do stick around and make sure that you vote. I think we're going to skip the visual descriptions this evening because we've got so many guests on, and we want to make sure that we get through all our content. And we also had a fair amount of feedback from viewers that they're not that interested in the visual descriptions. We actually had a commenter said that we could just put paper bags over our heads. She just didn't want to take the content. So we're working on the balance of making the show accessible and also comfortable for all of our participants. So for tonight, we're just going to skip the visual descriptions.
All right, so first of all, Lulu wanted me to dress up as Elvis, and it was not happening. So I was not coming as no Elvis, so I came as my own version of something. We are in the middle of election season, and the early voting we're in the early voting period. The November election is November the 8th for us. We had our election commission meeting Monday, and we have a number of participants who are newly online election integrity skeptics, and they are mostly focused on the 2020 elections, which is fine by me, but it's not well received because of the time period, and we're approaching the 22-month statute. However, their questioning of the 2020 election is okay with me because it's the same argument that I was making in 2022, that we don't, in 2020 also, that we need to be able to pursue an authenticatable result. But we are now conducting the election in our new ES&S equipment, and I posed some questions to our election administrator, which she kind of surprised me because she didn't have the answers. But one of the questions that I asked was, by disclosing the default method for our ES&S equipment is to store the ballot images, which are basically selfies of a paper ballot, because we have the option to vote by paper ballot and also with the ballot marking devices. My first question was, are they non-tabulating ballot marking devices? And a tabulating ballot marking device is a device that can count the election on its own, and we don't want those. We don't have those. But the second question I asked was, do we store the ballot images? And she did not have an answer for that one. That was a little bit troubling for me, but she's supposed to get me an answer. And the other one was, I wanted to know what was considered a public record. Well, the ballot images in their mind considered public record, or also, and the cast vote records, because there's a movement among a large group of people who are now conducting these experiments or these canvassing exercises as communities where they are getting those cast vote records and counting the election. And John Brakey of Audit USA, he has produced a video, and I'm going to see, can I do a more condensed version where I teach people how to read the cast vote record, because there's a series of open records requests that are happening all across the state of Tennessee, so definitely across the country, where they're asking for these cast vote records. It's pretty. I'm excited because there are more people who are willing to police the republic, but there should be some explanation of what some of this stuff is. So in the middle of our election, we are already getting public records requests for these what are public records in my mind. But the state coordinator of election may have a different opinion, and I don't know how in God's name he can have a different opinion. But that's kind of the state of play. So when the November 8th election is concluded for us, we may be met with lawsuits of more citizens than I've seen in my time here as an election commissioner, of people who are willing to sue for these public records if they are not given access to them. So there's also the destruction of our old machines And we have one county commissioner, Erica Sugarman, who has sent over a resolution asking for the whereabouts of those machines. So it's quite spirited down here, where the new elections are taking place and they seem to be going smoothly, but the requesting of information from the old elections is still happening. So there's a growing demand for accountability in elections, and that's pretty good to see.
Thanks so much for sharing that, Benny.
So Mark said I'm messing him up with the books behind me instead of the monitors. Psych, these are monitors. These are not books. I'm moving the screens around so you can see this.
Okay,
Actually,
so I want to just get started, and our first guest this evening to present is Josie Riederer. And I'm just going to say, in the interest of time, we are really excited to have all of you here. We're so grateful to you, and I know you're glad to be here. Probably best in terms of time, just to we're just going to assume that all of you are grateful to be here, and we don't need to say that each time, or go ahead and just dive into your presentation. So Josie, take it away.
All right. My costume is I'm an alien object interfering with our election machines and making our polling. People wait really long to vote. So again, my name is Josie. I'm the Deputy Policy and Communications Director with the Center for Common Ground. We are primarily an organization working to get out the vote in the South. Our goal this year is to mobilize Black voters who did not vote in the 2018 midterms. And if you've seen the data in Georgia, for example, and Virginia and Florida, our work is already making an impact with record-breaking voter turnout. But these are the states that we're working in this year. This is either through making phone calls, texting, postcarding, or if we have what's called democracy centers, people working on the ground, we also have them knocking on doors and engaging their community around the importance of voting. Oh, let me see if I can get to the next slide. All righty, so there's a few things here that you can support, which is either helping us reach our goal of sending 3.5 million postcards. We might have already gotten to that goal, which is great. We're busy making calls into all of our states, getting out the information for people that they need to know to vote. And we're working to send 7 million text messages as well. If you live in one of our target states, we also welcome you to get engaged with our democracy centers and to canvass on the ground. And beyond that, because this call is also a lot about election protection, we do have a tool called CSA 2022. And what this is, it's a tool that you can pull up on your phone and fill out a form to report any kind of election or voter intimidation that you might witness or experience at the polls. So I'll put all of that information in the chat, but I know we're short on time. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat as well if you have any questions or would like to get involved in the work that we're doing. Thank you.
Next, we have Jean Dufort from Coalition for Good Governance. Thank you so much for being with us.
And thanks for having me. While Josie works on the outside of elections, getting voters to the polls, the Coalition for Good Governance is working on the inside, making sure that those votes that are cast get counted the way the voter intended. We have been in litigation in the state of Georgia for the last 5 years, and we got the paperless voting system actually banned. The fight continues on to minimize the role of electronics in election because that brings risk and unaccountability. Along the way with our discovery, however, we've made a very, very large and alarming discovery, and that is that the statewide election software was stolen back in January of 2021 in an effort that was funded by Sidney Powell and the Stop the Steal crew. Listen to what a CIA analyst has to say about that.
That is the scariest thing I've heard said on this program in a long time. Tracy, what do you need Russian election meddlers for when you have Sidney Powell?
That's my thoughts exactly. I know we're thinking about the impact that this has, but really we have just gave, Russian disinformation trolls the blueprint to how we conduct elections and how votes are counted here in the US. There was an excellent movie about a decade ago that came out called Hacking Democracy, and it was all about sort of what would happen. Yeah. And it was all about if, Americans got their hands on this. But I think really we know that Russians have been trying to infiltrate our elections and change the narrative now for at least the past 2 election cycles. And we just really handed it to them on a silver platter now.
What do we do? I mean, how do we bring all of our intelligence assets to bear to protect our own country here?
So I think truly the only thing that we can do, and I know that this sounds, a little grand, is we really need to change our election system now. We don't have any other choice, simply because now it's out there. The blueprint is out there. And so now we really need to work to develop a different type of election system. And I think that needs to be done almost at sort of a high national security level, because the reality is, the way that this was handled was not carefully. We're seeing this with Mar-a-Lago. We're seeing this here with, sensitive information, sometimes classified information, being mishandled by members of really the president's inner circle. And so I think we need some independent folks coming in and basically recreating our election systems, or we're just going to have to go to paper, really.
So yes, we're going to have to go to paper, really. The formula to protect our elections. Georgia is especially vulnerable because we are one of the only states that has a statewide unified system, and we require all in-person voters to vote using an electronic ballot marking device. So the threat is real. The state has refused so far to do anything to protect it. We continue to call for these basic things, reduce the electronic footprint. And goes without saying, Georgia's a key swing state, and we have a high profile, very close Senate election in particular. So lots on the line. What can you do to help? You can demand accountable ballots. You can sign up to work for elections. Remember, this came to light not because of the officials disclosing. It came to light because of the Coalition for Good Governance consistent oversight of elections. Super important. And if you believe in our work, please make a donation to our legal fund, and feel free to reach out to us.
Those are some really great points there. So next up, we have Emily Levy of Scrutineers and Rich Garella of Protect Our Vote Philly.
We're going to be talking today about observing the processing and counting of votes. That is something that happens after voting ends on election night and in the days that follow, possibly for as long as a couple of weeks. And for those of you who work 9-to-5 jobs or have other obligations during the day, sometimes these processes go on in the evenings and weekends too. So please don't count yourself out of doing this kind of work. Anyone who cares about fair elections can do this work. So even if you're working on get out the vote now, or you're working the polls on election day, after voting ends, this is something that you can do. If you're working the polls not on election night because you'll be too tired, but in the following days. And you can do this work even if you don't have voting rights. So if you're not 18 yet, or you're not a citizen, or your voting rights have been taken away, this is still a way that you can have an impact on making our elections fair and transparent. So why is it important? Let's look at the first slide. Why is it important to do this work? We're going to talk about 4 reasons. The first reason is to catch mistakes. So election workers are human, and just like all the rest of us, they make mistakes. And the more eyes that are on the processes, the more likely it is that any mistakes that are happening will be caught. And sometimes, this is number 2, so sometimes we can get problems corrected in the moment for the current election. And then there are times when what we observe and report and follow up on can make the processes better for future elections. And now Rich Garella is going to talk about points 3 and 4 on this slide.
Yes, hi.
Rich is from Protect Our Vote Philly.
Yes, and I don't know if you can see me. I'm wearing my tin hat, so I have no outside undue influences.
Right.
The number 3 is protect workers from false allegations. So you know, a lot of people look at this as being observers, as being constantly critical, but also when things are going well, observers can see that procedures have been properly followed, and that means that we can challenge false claims that things went wrong. And it looks like that some of that will be happening probably in these midterms. But the point is that observers can speak up in public of election officials who are doing their jobs well in a difficult situation when things are going right, and defend against false claims when those claims are false. And then the fourth item is sort of an interesting one. It's defending observers' rights. So it's not even about the canvassing vote counting procedures themselves. What we as observers have to do is make sure our own rights to observe are respected, and make sure we can actually see what's going on. Otherwise, we can't catch mistakes, get problems corrected, or disprove false allegations. So as an observer, you need to find out what the rights of observers are in your jurisdiction. Make sure you can exercise those rights and see what's going on well enough to say whether everything was done right or wasn't. So the underlying point here is the election has to be fair, but it also has to be seen to be fair. And that's what observers are for. And I think we're going back to Emily.
Okay, and now we're ready for the next slide, Lulu.
Okay,
So
and
where
I
this
just want to
happens,
let people know that at the end of the evening, somebody who's actually observing the election right now in Florida, that's Jamie Friend, who's in Broward County, is going to come, and she's going to give us kind of a real-time description of what her evening was like. And one of the things that she said frequently is that she often, when she goes in, just immediately is told that she has to sit sort of in the corner, and she isn't allowed to see, you know, what she needs to see in order to actually do her job of election observation. So you're going to get that report later on this evening.
so where this observation happens is not at the polling places, but in election offices or whatever site your local election officials are using to count the votes. So this is a photo of where the votes were being counted in Philadelphia in November of 2020. Sometimes it could be a warehouse or an arena, and often there are multiple stations in the same room with different parts of the process performed at each one. And if you see way over in the top right corner, it says duplication. And Rich has a story about observing the ballot duplication process.
Right. So we wanted to show that observing can have really excellent results. And this is something that happened to us in November 2020. We were over at the duplication area that you can see at the right. And while we were observing, we saw this is where workers are duplicating damaged ballots that can't go through the scanner so that they can put the duplicate through the scanner. And that's a very normal process done in a lot of places, and it's legal. The problem is that they weren't numbering them and labeling them as duplicates, which is required by state law. And the reason it's required is so that you can match them up later and prove that they were copied accurately if there's any kind of a question of that. So we put a lot of effort in and pressured our election officials to do it right. And they didn't like it one bit that we were pressuring them, but eventually they did correct it. And what that did was it cut off what could have been yet another accusation undermining our election. So we were able to call something out, have it fixed, and it's an example of how observation can actually help protect election results.
Great.
Back to you, Emily.
Okay, can we have the next slide? So we've talked a little bit about the who, what, when, where, and why of observing the post-election processes, the vote processing and counting. If you would like to learn how, I invite you to come to our next training. And I've put the link into the chat. It's scrutineers.org/next-training. We call our training How to Help Stop Election Sabotage. And I want to also invite you to join the community at scrutineers.org. That's a final slide, Lulu. If you're interested in doing this kind of work in community rather than feeling like you're on your own out there, we have a thriving community. There are over 1,000 members in the Scrutineers community, and we invite you to become the next new member. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you both so much. And I think this is a good point where to show a little bit of our work. Smart Elections has been focused on one particular type of observation. This is before you get to what Rich and Emily are doing, which is post-election observation. We've been observing in the polling place, and we've been comparing the number of voters who vote with the number of ballots scanned. It's a very simple reconciliation, and we've developed a spreadsheet in order to help observers to, to really be able to track this. So I'm just going to show you two spreadsheets, one from a polling location where everything looked correct, and then one where things looked a little bit weird. So this was in the recent August primary in New York City. And all we do with these forms, it looks like a lot of information, but it's actually really straightforward. You just put in the name of the polling location, your name, who you got your certificate from. Usually you have to, in New York, you have to be working with a candidate or a political party, usually, even though we're nonpartisan, you have to get that authorization. You go to the electronic polling stations and you write down how many voters checked in that day at that time. This was at the end of polls. So you see at table 1, 72, table 2, 58, 35 and 33 at each of those tables, and it came to 198 votes. And then you go to the scanners, and the scanners have actually two different counters on them. But for this exercise, we're looking at the public counter, which tells you how many ballots were scanned just that day, that election day. And we found 50, 50, 49, and 49. And when you add them up, there was 198. So 198 voters voted and 198 scanners, ballots were scanned. And so that's perfect. That's what you want to see. And then we have other notes. We check like if the accessible ramps are there in place and things like that. And then I'll just show you a form where things didn't look right. And I'm just going to blow this up a little here. I did both of these observations. I went to the table and I added up 480 people who had checked in. But then when I went to the scanners and looked at them at the public counter, that's how many ballots had been scanned that day, it was 1,178. So there were 698 more ballots than voters that voted. And that's a problem. Sometimes you might have less ballots than voters who vote, but you really never want to have more ballots. That's a red flag. Something's wrong. And we've been trying to get information about this election actually for over a year now. We did 4 separate public records requests to the New York City Board of Elections, and they refused to give us even basic information. All we were asking for was the voter participation list. We should be able to have that's public information. All the voters who checked in, like all the voters who checked into that particular polling site during that voting period, which was early voting and election day. So we're very concerned just because you shouldn't have those type of numbers. And you should also, if something like that does happen, it could just be a mistake, but they should be able to explain it and provide, more information. So if you're interested in working with us more, our website is smartelections.us, and I'll put the links in the chat to where you can see those full reports that we did. And go ahead and just reach out at contact@smartelections.us, and we'll set you up with these forms. If you want to do this at your polling location anywhere in the country, we can tailor the form to what voting machines you're working on, and we'd be happy to have you do it. Thank you so much. So next up, we're going to Lynn Bernstein, who's Transparent Elections North Carolina. And Lynn, I believe, and for those who didn't know, I'm the Hulk, She-Hulk. Lynn, you ready?
I am.
Go for it.
So while I'm pulling this my screen share up, I am a voting witch, and I have no real special powers except that I talk to people about why they should go vote. So
Get arrested.
What's that?
You get arrested.
Yeah, making good trouble. So my name is Lynn Bernstein, and I'm the founder of Transparent Elections. We do a lot of nonpartisan election observation, and one of the things that we're doing for the 2022 election is that we are collecting essentially election evidence. And election evidence, like Rich said, doesn't always have to be a gotcha. It can be exculpatory as well. And so just going and imaging poll tapes, video recording poll tapes. And let me go what a poll tape is. A poll tape is a receipt that looks like a cash register receipt. And essentially it is the receipt that comes out of the vote counting machine or a tabulator or scanner. They're called different things in different places. And these machines, when they boot up in the morning, they print something called a zero report. And it has a lot of great information on it. But one of the most important things is showing that there are 0 vote totals already in those machines. So we want to make sure that there's no digital ballot stuffing going on. And then we go at the end of the day to image the results tapes. And so we look at the vote totals and number of overvotes and undervotes, which Susan Pinchon is going to go over. And we look to make sure that ballot images are being saved. Those are really great records. And I think John Brakey is going to be talking about those. And then it has information about the public and protected count, which is one of the ways that Lulu was able to determine that more ballots went in those machines than voters who walked into the precinct.
Lynn's next training is Saturday, November 5th.
From 9:30 to 11, that's Eastern time. We're going to be talking about what a poll tape is, and we're really going to be doing some hands-on training of how to use Actual Vote app to video record tapes. And I know that Jason Flatley is going to be talking about that a little bit later as well. We also go into what do you do if you're denied seeing the tapes or you discover an anomaly, or probably even worse of all, if they're not saving ballot images. That's a huge important thing this election, and we're really going to start reporting jurisdictions to the Justice Department who aren't saving these really critical records. And then the very last part, we're going to touch on some North Carolina specific stuff, but no matter what state you live in, I encourage you to come. You'll learn a lot, and you'll learn how to do this in your own jurisdiction. I'll go ahead and put those links in the chat.
Thanks so much. And next up, we're going to have a presentation that really dovetails with this. So this is Jason Flatley from America Counts, and they've developed an app that really helps you to record these poll tapes that Lynn was talking about. So these are kind of two different groups that are really helping and supporting each other. They're developing software that makes Lynn's job easier, and it's really working well with a number of groups.
Thanks, Lulu. So this dovetails with what Lynn was talking about. These are poll tapes posted at vote centers on election night, and they contain data about the day's votes that's used for vote reporting. Unfortunately, the vote reporting process is vulnerable to error and fraud in the United States. So we developed an app called Actual Vote that allows you to video record the data on the poll tapes on election night to preserve that crucial data at the beginning of the chain of custody. And this data can be compared to official results to check for discrepancies. And the video part is really important because, as you can see here on the left, I have the Actual Vote app in my hands, and I'm going to press that record button here on site at a polling place. And then in the middle, you can see I'm in the middle of videoing a poll tape, and those vote totals are right there on my video. And on the right-hand side, you can see a blowed up picture of that David A. Perdue, for example, has 156 votes. This data gets sent to our secure servers for safekeeping. And it looks like this. This is our public website. And after your videos are reviewed and approved, the data goes up here for public view and potentially later analysis. And there are basically two outcomes that can come from that analysis. At the top here, you see a spreadsheet that has poll tape totals and official totals for two different candidates in a hypothetical race. And those poll tape totals only exist because we're imagining somebody used Actual Vote on the poll tapes. So for Amelia Arnold, you can see that the poll tape totals and the official totals match, which is what we want. We've verified that the vote reporting was done correctly in that case. But then Bill Brown has a discrepancy there at the Clawson Library precinct. And we know that because we recorded that value of 60 using the Actual Vote. And we have a video recording on our website that ties back to that number that constitutes evidence of error in vote reporting here. Compared to the bottom case where everything checks out. There, we've verified that the vote reporting was done correctly. And that independent evidence collected by our citizen auditors using Actual Vote enhances trust where trust is warranted. It can expose and repair problems in elections that are error-prone and can defend against bad faith accusations of election fraud, as other presenters have emphasized. So get Actual Vote at americacounts.us/Actual Vote portal. I'll put that link in the chat. Tell your friends about it, especially those in key battleground states. And together we can improve accuracy and transparency in vote reporting in the United States.
Thank you so much, Jason. So
You're welcome.
That portion of the program is has been talking about poll tapes, and now we're going to move to a kind of a different part of the program, and we're going to talk about digital ballot images. And so for this part, we're going to start with John Brakey from Audit USA. So I'm just looking for John, and then I see him, and John has a great costume also. This is pretty exciting. So it'll be John Brakey first talking about digital ballot images, and then we'll have Paul Burke talking about how to use those in a digital ballot image audit. Thank you so much, John.
Thank you. You can hear me well, right?
I can hear you. What's your costume?
John, yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Brakey, and I am here to talk about election transparency and the fight that's going on for it. I am dressed like I used to look in the 70s. I used to have an afro, but it was all dark hair. And I was scary back then too, because I'm a lifelong activist and I'm known for fighting for what's right all over the place. I'm in litigation right now in 3 states. And if I had the funds, I'd be in more states. I used to be a transparency, election integrity activist, but I learned that the solution was transparency, and that's what I work for. What I hope to show you here, and to just point out, above me is a QR code. You can take that and you'll find a 25-minute film with Paul Burke and me explaining something very exciting. How to take a cast vote record, a CVR, which is a hot topic across the country right now, and analyze it. And then convert that CVR into a ballot image audit database by importing the ballot images and the single cast vote records from the ES&S system into the spreadsheet. Right now in our country, we're digital, folks. There's only 2 states are not. We're over 90%. And that means when a ballot goes into a machine, it doesn't count the ballot, it counts the picture that it made. And that picture is a public record that is very, very important. What you're looking at right now, and I'm moving my mouse around, is that this is an image. And in the ES&S system, it's 483I. I stands for image. 483C, that C stands for a single cast vote record. And then it's imported into this database. If you were auditing a precinct, we would, and that's the way you want to audit, that's the smallest denominator. You would want to go ahead and then click on that 483I, and that image would pop up. And then you would match the row and say, yeah, that person got a vote, Rick Scott, whoever afterwards. And then you can do the same thing with the cast vote record, because you're hearing most of the people say chain of custody. It is everything in elections. And so moving on to my next slide is that this is a place that if you're interested in working with us, and I work with most of the groups here online that we're watching, and because what we need to do is make elections transparent, trackable, and publicly verified. And just to wind up is that the problems in elections are complicated, but my God, the solutions are simple. And I'm working as hard as I can to try to get information out everywhere. And so please, when you go back and you see that QR code, look at it, share our press release, go ahead and get this out. I'm dealing with different media right now to see if they can spotlight it, because when the election melts down, possibly in November, this will be a quick solution. Get the ballot images, the cast vote record, and go to town, start auditing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Go,
and
John.
So next up, we're going to have Paul Burke, and he's going to talk a little bit about sort of what you would do once you have those digital ballot images. You would do a digital ballot image audit. And Paul, can we get any more light on your face?
No,
No?
nothing here.
Dark, it's a Halloween image.
That's right. It must be dark.
Okay. Talk to us about the digital ballot image audit. What would that be like?
Okay, so you can show my slide. My site is votewell.net, which has a video and more explanations of auditing in general, including ballot image audits. So as John just said, election machines scan every ballot. And like any scanner, they keep a scanned electronic image. And the point of a ballot image, and then the election machine analyzes that and counts up votes. The point of the ballot image audit is a separate independent software can also analyze those images and do its own analysis and counts. And comparing the 2 software systems finds and solves most errors in each. So the middle green circle there shows that election software, if the election software is wrong, this kind of image audit will catch it. And the right-hand circle is green because these ballots are scanned before they go into storage, when they first come back from the voters. So whatever might happen to them, if they might be sitting in ballot storage rooms, and if anyone has unauthorized access, that won't matter to the ballot image audit because it's working with the images that have already been made. The other two common kinds of audits are risk limiting audits and batch audits. And they do not, the risk limiting audits only cover 1 or 2 contests per jurisdiction. The batch audits only cover a very small sample. So they may have a lot of ballots, but it's only a few batches in each jurisdiction. So both of those leave a lot of risk unmeasured. In the risk limiting audits, it's the contests that they don't audit. And in batch audits, it's the contests where they don't have enough sample size. So, and I think there's a little bit more line. If Lulu, you can move up the slide a little bit. Anyway, there's a line for hand counts, which also check the scans are accurate and the software is accurate, but they also depend on the using ballots from storage. So those are at risk if there's any unauthorized access to the storage rooms where the ballots are stored. As Emily said, Scrutineers.org has tips on observing audits, and those are part of the observing that you can be trained for at Scrutineers.org. So thanks very much.
Paul, I wonder if you would answer one question for us. I know that John Brakey brought up a cast vote record, and he said those are kind of a hot topic right now. Can you just give people a very brief understanding of what a cast vote record is? And why, how does it connect with a digital ballot image?
The election machine interprets every ballot and creates a record of its interpretations. So on an anonymous line across the screen, there will show who was chosen for governor or secretary of state or state representative, member of Congress, senator, and so forth. That complete collection of votes from one person is the cast vote record. And that should match the image the way John was showing it. And you can add those up to check that those totals match the official totals.
And the cast vote record is usually basically a spreadsheet, right?
It's usually a spreadsheet, yes.
So it might be a spreadsheet on one page that's just one vote. That might be one cast vote record. And then you might have a spreadsheet that has thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of votes, and that would be a whole cast vote record database. Is that what you would call
that? That would be generally the record from each ballot is a cast vote record, and the collection of them then is the cast vote record database. And in a large scale ballot image audit, you run the software and create a new set of cast vote records and compare them. So if there's any discrepancy, then you pursue those and solve them.
You compare the cast vote record from the new run with the cast vote record that you got as maybe part of a public records request from the election officials.
That's right, yes.
Or maybe they posted it online if you're lucky.
Some places do, yes.
That cast vote record, okay.
And so the public can ask for these and pursue them.
Right, and it gives you more confidence that the elections are either correct or that the elections have some mistakes and you could maybe locate them.
Yes.
Super. I think this
I have cast vote record databases that have 700,000 rows. And using what we're showing in this video, pivot tables, I would rather use a cast vote record database to analyze and review than using an 800-page Canvas report. It's that incredible. This is the future that people will be requesting these if they're going to do deep dives.
Thank you both so much. Really appreciate that. And so next up, we're going to move to something called overvotes, which many of us are familiar with. But for those who might not know it, even for those of us who do know, this is a really interesting deep dive into overvotes and where they are particular problems. And this is Susan Pynchon from Florida Fair Elections Coalition.
Man, we got the whole gang here.
I know this is like old home week.
Yeah.
So, okay, hi, everybody. So, and the subject of cast vote records, that video that John just prepared, he and Paul Burke, I highly recommend watching it. He posted it in the chat, and it explains cast vote records. It shows them, and it shows how to analyze them. It's really a great video. So on to overvotes. So I'm talking tonight about a part of voting that doesn't generally get much attention, sort of a hidden thing that people don't look at much, but it can actually result in tens of thousands of lost votes, which has happened in every major election in Florida since 2008. Tens of thousands of lost votes each election for both governor and presidential race. So for those of you who may not exactly understand what an overvote is, just a quick description. What is an overvote? It's making more than the allowed numbers of choices in a race. So here you see an actual sample of a portion of a Florida ballot from the 2020 election. And this voter voted for two people, voted for Joe Biden and Howie Hawkins. Now, it's important to realize that an overvote is almost always a mistake. And we think that if you notice it says president and vice president vote for one, and we think that's what's causing voters in Florida, a lot of voters. It affects young people, minority voters, people with reading difficulties are all overvoting in this race. Another quick example is the governor's race from 2018. Someone voted for Ron DeSantis and also for Darcy Richardson. So their votes do not count because you don't know who they intended to vote for. So these are all lost votes. And again, there's the thing that we think is causing confusion, governor and lieutenant governor, and people are voting twice. Now, so ballot design, the instructions causes an overvote, but the machines are supposed to protect by law. They're supposed to protect voters from overvoting. So when you walk up with your hand-marked paper ballot, you've overvoted in a race and you don't realize that you've made a mistake. And you put your ballot in the machine, and that machine, and by Florida law, and this may be different in different states, it's supposed to kick the ballot back to you. And then you know there's some kind of problem, and then you ask the poll worker, and they explain you've overvoted, and then you can go and correct your ballot. I'm going to show you one last screen. Prepare yourself for a lot of busyness. If you see the little screen that's posted on top of the machine, it says DS200. This is the machine used by 92% of voters in Florida who early vote and vote in precincts on election day. 92%, millions of voters use this machine. And when you overvote, the next screen is the screen that you see. So there's a lot of busyness here. So it takes your ballot, suddenly the screen pops up, and you're supposed to do something, make a choice. So look at the two rectangles at the bottom of the screen. One says don't cast, return your ballot, and the other one says accept. Well, intuitively, most people just click on accept because they want their vote to be counted. They want their ballot to be accepted. So they click on accept, they walk away not realizing that they've just lost their vote. Now this, and just as in closing, the state of Florida does an overvote report after every major election. They've completely ignored the fact that there's a problem. It's nothing to see here, folks. And in addition to this, in addition to the tens of thousands of overvotes that occur in every election, Florida also allows counties to turn their overvotes into undervotes for vote by mail. So we don't even know the total number of overvotes. And that's, and we have a report, I'll put it in the chat, just came out today, that explains this in more detail, explains the different ways that the state of Florida is not following the law, and with recommendations for what needs to be done to correct it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Susan. And I actually did just upload your whole report into the chat. So anybody who wants to download it can download it directly from the chat. And you can also put the link in there for people.
Thank you. Thank you, Lulu.
Yes, I'm looking forward to reading it myself. Florida Fair Elections Coalition does some of the best research of any group in the country.
Hands down.
Yeah, they've done terrific research for years and years, public records requests and all kinds of auditing. So we're really looking forward to reading that. And so we just have one more presenter
And
tonight.
Lulu, if I could, I know a quick addendum, and just in the sake of full disclosure, we have Florida Fair Elections Coalition. I also work for Audit Elections USA for John Brakey, and I just wanted to make that disclosure and put a plug in for donating to Audit Elections USA. All right, thanks so much.
Absolutely. All these groups need your support. So next up, we're going to get Jamie Friend, who is actually doing election observation right now in Broward County, Florida. So how did it go tonight, Jamie?
Hi, everybody. I would like to tell you that it went great, and because every time I go, I expect this time they're going to get it right, and I was refused entry. So let me start from the beginning. My name is Jamie Friend, and I am the founder and co-chair of Citizens Audit Broward, which we started in 2016, working very closely with Democracy Counts, now America Counts, and using their actual vote app to record and upload poll tapes on election night, which has served very, very useful and has found many discrepancies and taught us a lot. And we're still using that. But what I'm going to talk about tonight is early voting. They don't post poll tapes at the end of every day. They roll each night over until the last day. And so there's no way for us to record and document and safekeep these results from the end of the night. So we have a couple back in 2020, I believe it was, we started observing the poll closings because in our statutes, the public is allowed to view the closings. The public is also entitled to the end of the day report, which is when they reconcile the paper ballots to the number of registered voters that came in to vote to the number of scans. So there's a three-way reconciliation that we're supposed to get at the end of the night. So tonight, and I want to preface this by saying that our supervisor of elections, we helped get elected. We did a lot of work for him. He called me the night that he won his election. He called me to tell me the audit was going to be his priority, transparency. So that's why I keep expecting this to go well when I show up.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, so needless to say, they didn't let me in. I told her I have the statutes in my possession. Can I show them to you? No, I don't care about the statutes. You're not allowed in. I would say that since 2020, I personally have visited 30 early voting sites at the end of day. I was probably allowed into 17 or 18 of them. Of those 18, only 5 were doing the report at all. And of those 5, only 2 let me see the numbers. So this is something that's really, that in itself is an audit, right? The fact that even that I couldn't get in itself is an audit of their early voting procedures because I am allowed by law to be there and they have failed us. How do I correct this? I called Joe Scott, our supervisor of elections, who did not call me back this year. Last year, he called me within 2 minutes on election night, but this time I got no response. And I hate to say this, but I might turn to our newly formed election task force or police or investigatory, something that, Ron DeSantis is looking at voter fraud. I don't know if they have jurisdiction for election fraud. They are looking at voters, but at least now I have something to leverage some consequence, I guess, because they have failed to correct the problem every year. So that's what I have to say. It's supposed to be easy and transparent, and but that in itself is telling. So we've learned something every time we go. Thank you.
I will just share the statutes. Jamie was kind enough to send me the Florida statutes on this. The election board shall therefore, in the presence of members of the public desiring to witness the proceedings, verify the number of voted ballots, unused ballots, provisional ballots, and spoiled ballots to ascertain whether such number corresponds with the number of ballots issued by the supervisors. That's a basic ballot reconciliation. Did they let you do that?
They didn't even let me in the door this time.
Okay, so clearly they didn't let you do that.
Right.
Then here's the next part of the statute, the total that she's highlighted, the total number of voted ballots shall be entered on the forms provided. The proceedings of the election board at the precinct after the polls have closed shall be open to the public.
If you have a minute, I will tell you that in 2020, I appealed this, and I talked with our supervisor of elections, who was then appointed to the task force. And he sent his attorneys to tell me that only applies to election day, and we can't give out. But it very specifically applies to early voting, and it very specifically makes a differentiation between early vote, between canvassing of the ballots and canvassing of the results. So there's definitely a differentiation between the two, and I'm entitled, and we'll have to pursue it, because I don't take no for an answer.
And one of the things that Jamie's done due diligence here, she's looked up the statutes, she knows what they say, and that's really important. If you are going to do observations, it's very important to familiarize yourself with the statutes, find out, what they are, so that when you go, and bring them with you, so that you can at least show them to the officials in case you do have trouble. When I first went this time in the August primary to do the work that I was doing with the candidate certificate, where I showed you the forms where we filled in the number of electronic, the voters in the electronic poll books, and then the numbers in the scanners, the supervisor initially said, oh no, you can't do that. And so I had the statute with me and the guidance from the Board of Elections, which is printed up, which does say that I'm allowed to do that. And so once I showed her that, then she let me do it. So not in Jamie's case, I guess they didn't, but it does help sometimes to have those statutes with you, and definitely do your research ahead of time and make sure that, that you know what the statutes are. So Jamie, as Emily said in the chat, thank you for your diligence, and we really appreciate you sharing your story with us.
I'm the test rat, right? Like I'll be.
Well, I think all of us are out there.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, now it's time for us to do. Thank you so much for everybody who presented. We really, really appreciate it.
Man.
And we're going to be posting this on YouTube and on Facebook. We apologize for the technical difficulties. We never had that happen before. Last time when we did the forum, we were able to get the Zoom onto YouTube and Facebook. So sorry for the technical difficulties. And I see some questions coming in. What about demographic data? And Justin, do you want to explain what you mean by that? We've got a question from Justin LeBlanc.
I can feel that one. That's usually the county registration data. Let me just say, we have such a star-studded cast. We've all been in states together. I think I've worked with nearly everybody who has spoke tonight. This is $1 million worth of game. Easily, we have the best and brightest at nearly every part of the election integrity field represented here. You just do not get this type of representation anywhere. And there are people raising money left and right. I'm on the board for Smart Elections, on the advisory committee for for John Brakey's Audit USA, Emily's Scrutineers, technical advisor for Lulu. This is just wonderful to see all of these people here. This is the top level of expertise, and it's amazing.
Thanks so much for that, Benny. And if people have questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat. And did you answer that about the demographics?
Yeah, it's the voter registration statistics that tells you, when we did Tim Canoa's race, Lulu, we said that you had to get struck by lightning every time for a year in order for the demographics to reach the turnout that he had. So this is pairing the cast voter record with the demographic profiles of people. So your racial breakdown, your age groups, and all of that coloring information about the voter registration statistics.
We did do that. That was a race that Benny and I looked at we looked in both 2016 and 2018, and we had
in Broward County.
It was in Broward County. Yeah. We had a data analyst who broke down the vote actually by, because Florida releases very extensive demographic data at the precinct level. We were able to get, I think, Black, white, Hispanic, other. And so we actually broke down the vote by each group, and were able to see in some places where it really did not make sense in terms of what Tim's base was. So that was another way that we were able to analyze the data in that race. And Lynn, you've got a question?
Yeah, I'm curious about Dale Axelrod's costume there. I've been trying to piece that together. I was hoping he might be able to explain it.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to move to costumes now. So I'm going to go back to the gallery view. And I think what we'll do is we'll spotlight each person's costume. So take note, and then everybody is going to get to vote in the chat. 1 vote each, no double voting. Vote for your
Yeah, no
favorite
cheating on
costume.
votes.
And Kelly and Brian, can you help? Why don't you both add them up, and we'll make sure that we get the same number. That's how we'll do a redundant vote tally. So okay, here we go. I'm going to start with Benny as
There is so much lint on my microphone. This is
Are these
crazy.
secret votes, Lulu? I don't want to
No.
offend anybody.
It's
Public.
not a secret ballot. I'm so sorry. It's got to be public. So I'm gonna, this is Benny, and we have to move through this fast. So just say who you are, Benny.
I'm going 10-4. Oh, sorry. I thought I was voting. Sorry. I'm Sherlock Holmes.
Black Sherlock, you said.
I'm sorry. I'm Black Sherlock. Yes. that's
Okay.
right.
Next up, we have Lynn Bernstein.
I am a witch with no powers. All I do is go try to convince people to vote.
Get arrested.
Justin,
And-
is that
yeah.
a costume or just a mask? It's a costume, I think. We're gonna go for it. What's your costume?
I am a doctor seeing patients,
In a real
diagnosing
tent.
the problems with the election system.
Oh, you're diagnosing voting machine problems?
Yep.
Okay.
Triage.
Great. Next up, that's Justin LeBlanc. Next up, we have Rich Gorello. What's your costume?
I'm not sure you mean what costume. This is my usual tinfoil hat.
Okay, next
Need one of
up,
those.
Paul, are you in costume? No. Emily, are you in costume or just background? You're muted.
Just background.
Okay, it was a nice background though. I do think we
Was
should,
the official ballot.
make sure to, where'd she go? She
I'm
just,
right here. I'll talk for a moment so people can see my background. The bats are flying away with the
spotlight you, I
ballot.
think.
Yep.
Okay, nice scary background. Thank you so much. Okay, next up for the costumes, Liz, I don't think you're in costume. You look normal to me. Then I had John Brakey. John, can you remove your background so we can really get the full
Yeah,
effect
let me do that. Flip
Of
right
your-
off of it right now.
costume? I think is it a 70s look?
Yeah, that's me in
The dandelion.
1970.
You
but
made it
was
white,
really
John.
Dark, and I was hanging out with Abby Hoffman.
That's a
I was
pretty
a
great
freak
one.
back then.
Okay, that's John
Hippies had
Brakey.
died, so we called
70s
ourselves freaks.
outfit. Next up, we got Dale Axelrod. Dale?
Yeah, I'm a scary internet voting person.
I've never seen this.
Wow, nice. Pretty great there. Okay.
Two.
Roy, are you in costume? Hang on. You gotta unmute yourself.
Yes, I'm in costume. I am an American.
Are you maybe a MAGA American?
Not telling.
No
Undercover.
Go for
Okay,
it. I see the red shirt beneath it.
next up, I've got
Welcome to the
Jean
poll booth.
Dufour. Jean, what are you?
So cats are persistent and independent, and that is the attitude I take towards elections. So I'm a fabulous cat tonight.
Wow, love that.
Yeah, round.
Okay, I think I don't see anybody else in costumes. Everybody else is
Lulu,
blacked
you
out.
have to tell about your costume. Your
I
green
will
skin.
show you mine. I am the Hulk, She-Hulk. And I have a pin on, which I don't know if you can see, but I am She-Hulk protecting people and stopping them from barcode voting. Very, very powerful and evil. So I'm using my muscles, and She-Hulk is actually a very brilliant legal attorney. So I'm using my legal mind and my muscles to fight counting votes with barcodes.
I think
Okay.
Kelly and Brian, I think Kelly and
Oh,
Brian
yeah,
are
yeah,
in
yeah. We gotta
costume
get you
too.
guys in here. I'm sorry. Hang on. Let me get you guys in here. Where's Brian? Nice duo effort here.
Pretend this is an FBI badge. So
Come
we're
on there.
X-Files, Mulder and Scully
Mulder
here
and Scully.
to watch the elections and watch for partisanship too. We're the partisanship.
Partisan police. Partisan agents.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Amazing. Thank you all so much for participating. It's really fun. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Put your votes in the chat. One vote per person.
I'm gonna get arrested for voting more than once.
Do not vote more than once. You
That sounds just like you,
I just-
Susan.
I just said I can't decide. I'm putting everybody in.
We
That
can
sounds
all,
just like
this
you,
is like
Susan.
public voting. You can all count the votes actually. So everybody can go to town. I can, Kelly, I can call them out for you and you want to write them down?
Sure. Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna hopefully see the top of the first vote. I think the first one I see coming in here. Kelly, you voted for Benny. Is that the first vote?
Yep.
Okay, Benny won. Wait. Okay, Dale Axelrod won. I see Emily Levy. I thought you were Richard Simmons, John. Is that a vote? Emily, was that a vote for John or just a oh wait, that was.
That's definitely a vote.
Definitely a vote.
Okay, Emily Levy.
We're the
voted-
vote review panel and we're very, agreeable. If the intent counts, you.
Okay, just check out because Emily also said, love your mask, Jean. So Emily may have done an overvote and voted twice.
Come on, Emily. Can we
Emily
get
should
some Scrutineers
know
training?
better. I'm scanning down later to see Emily to everyone. She actually voted for Benny. Okay, but don't put it down yet. We're going to go back. So these are just comments.
Okay.
They're not votes, which we can tell because this is a very like a handmarked paper ballot. It's clear.
Yeah,
We're
my
able
hand
to.
is clear. I'm not rigging this election either.
Okay, so we got so far 1 vote for Benny and 1 vote for Dale.
Two
Okay.
votes for Benny.
Actual vote. Jamie.
Two
Friend
votes for Benny. Two votes for Benny.
Mark Shaw for Benny.
I'm auditing.
Justin LeBlanc. Smashing barcodes. That's me. 1 vote for Lulu. Daniel Wolf. 1 vote for Dale Axelrod. Liz Lee. 1 vote for Benny. We're not doing ranked choice voting. Victoria Olson for Benny. Emily Levy for Benny.
I think it's a runaway
Ward
now.
for Dale. Kelly Lane for Benny. Lynn Bernstein for John Brakey. Gretchen Ackerman for Dale. Me, I voted for Dale. Benny Smith, tinfoil, that's a Rich Gorella. 1 for Rich Gorella. 1 for John Brakey from Brian. Jason Flatley voted for Jean the cat. 1 for Jean. Another 1 for Benny. Rich Gorella for Lynn the witch. Are you getting these?
Yep.
Dale Axelrod voted for
Surely we're going to
Sherlock.
conduct a real
So
election.
that's 1 vote for Benny there from Dale, not a vote for. That's
Yeah,
clear.
got it.
1 vote for Benny. Then from Emily, 1 vote for Dale. She's not voting 3 times, is she? Emily?
That's an overvote.
I just tried to vote twice, but apparently I voted 5 times by accident.
How many times did you vote? All of Emily's votes are disqualified.
Can
She
we get the
overvoted.
scrutineers to come and audit this election?
Emily, seriously, how many times did you vote?
Twice.
Okay, your votes are discounted. You overvoted. So you have to
Wait, I
remove.
pushed the red button though.
Okay, so we're we're giving your ballot back to you and telling you to rectify it. So you
Yeah,
had
you
1
need-
vote for Dale and you had 1 vote previously.
My real vote is for Benny.
All
Your
right,
real vote
so
is for Benny.
Cast it on a
Okay. So
DS200.
that's the one that we already registered.
The
So-
vote's been adjudicated.
Okay, so
It's
the
been
vote.
adjudicated,
okay,
that's
so
right.
the last actual registered vote we had was 1 vote for Benny from
Okay.
Dale. You got that one, Kelly?
Yes.
Okay, so this one we're not counting, which was from Emily. Next up, we have 1 more for Benny from John Brakey.
Look,
I
I might
think
run for Congress.
It's a
in
runaway
Tennessee.
here, but
Yeah, I think I may run
Hang
for
on.
Congress in Tennessee.
No, it's not ranked choice voting. Emily did that, I'm sure, to teach us all a lesson about overvoting and how when it's transparent, we can find it.
That's right.
Can't decide, Susan. You know you can't write in your ballot like that. Can't decide. Love Benny's.
That's a write-in series
I
of
did
overvoting.
multiple, that's a demonstration of the kinds of mistakes that voters make.
Okay, Susan apparently did not vote. We're not doing ranked choice voting. Did Justin LeBlanc vote already? I thought he did.
He did rank choice. Justin?
See why we need audits.
Okay, Justin LeBlanc,
originally
I'm
did
scanning
ranked
back
choice,
to
but-
see if
Tell you
Justin
what, if I
LeBlanc-
win, it's a clean election. No audits.
Justin
ballot was
LeBlanc vote
rejected.
previously. No.
Before the results are announced, we need to take a video record of them.
Right, that's right.
Benny, you're not, Benny, you're not challenging the results if.
What's
you
up,
can.
Dan? Dan is gonna put it in his app.
We do have
The
a video
same chat
record.
is actually the poll.
I didn't know Dan was
right?
on.
Okay, so Justin LeBlanc, this is the first time he's voting, and we're just going to take his first vote, which is for Emily, since he's ranked them, we know. So one vote for Emily, and then Jamie Friend.
I did rank choice first, then approval voting, and since both of them were rejected, I pressed the red button and chose there.
Wait, so did you vote before this, Justin, or is this the first time you voted? This Emily to Benny?
That was the first time, but since it's an overvote, I rejected it and voted just for Dale.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay.
so you're rescinding this vote for Emily?
Yes.
Okay.
Can we get the auditors?
Okay.
I say we have
Vote
to
for-
redo.
Okay, so Justin has changed his vote as one for Dale. Jamie,
Very good.
I'm really not sure what this means. B3, because it sounds like Bernie.
That's a Russian.
Jamie, who did you vote
that's
for?
Russia. Yeah, that's Russia. Hold up. Let me see.
Jamie, who did you vote for? You're muted.
I voted
Lynn
for
said
Benny.
internet
I
voting
voted
is a
for Benny
mess.
because it sounds like Bernie.
Okay.
No,
That's
he's got a great costume.
very
Lynn
hard to
said internet voting is a mess.
hard to discern that, but that's a vote for Benny. Most transparent election ever, definitely. Okay, Justin, there's his real vote for Dale. Okay, that's it. And the totals, and hopefully we have more than one person adding. Brian, did you add also?
Hopefully we don't have more votes than voters.
Were you
Okay.
adding
Yeah,
too?
I voted.
I
Or
wasn't adding, I was
counted.
reading,
I
I
counted.
was reading them out. Did anybody else add the totals? Besides Kelly?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah,
got
I
Kelly
did.
and-
It's a party.
Hang
I'm
on,
sorry.
please, wait. Please do not all talk at once. Raise your hand, your either electronic or real hand, if you also tally the votes along with Kelly. Anybody else?
Kelly and Brian.
Brian did, great. Okay, so who was our number one and how many votes did you get?
I got Benny and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but
That's what I got.
okay.
Went for
Okay,
Benny.
and actually to
This is
be,
how an election is done.
to really be safe, we should have you both put them in the chat at the same time. So Benny
Yeah,
was
let's
first
audit
place
it.
with 10. And then who's your second place? Both of you put them in the chat at the same time.
I
How
don't
many
want to be
votes?
recalled.
We'll make sure the votes are
Emily
accurate.
thinks we have fractional voting.
Is that a majority or a plurality?
How many people are on the call?
If it's Georgia, you need 50% plus one, or it's not, you have to have a runoff.
We have 27
27.
participants, so it was not a majority, but we
Okay,
didn't. say
run
it was
off,
a
run off.
majority.
But,
Brian,
but,
how many
but
did
10
you
of how many? There are some non-voters here.
Brian, how many did you get for Dale?
Just
6.
total.
6, same thing?
All
Same
right.
thing.
Okay, and did you get, how about a third place?
Tied with John and Jean for 2.
Yep.
Kelly, same thing?
Yep.
Okay. John and Jean DeFort tied third place with 2 votes each.
I didn't even see Dale.
Okay, Benny is the winner. Okay.
And I did not run any software to do this. I'm going to run for Congress in Tennessee. Shoot.
You just need to wear that outfit.
Look, I made the bookcase. I went out.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did.
You did. It's very good.
You were
Lulu told me to dress up as Elvis. I was like, I got to do something different.
Yeah, Benny, the fact that you had the costume and the background, you got the whole shtick going there.
I'm telling you.
Yeah,
It's-
pretty nice.
And you can still sing, Benny. It's okay. Sherlock, play the violin. You can sing.
Fair point. I play the piano.
There were literally no rules, Emily. There were no rules whatsoever.
I just went for
The prize is $25, and we'll send you a check or PayPal, whichever you prefer, Benny. I hope you put that.
Oh, I get to win? Like, I'm a host. I can't win.
No, you can win. You just won. You just won.
Well, where my money at then? Where, for real?
Yeah,
All
you
right.
won.
I'm looking for it.
I'll call you afterwards and I'll do a PayPal transaction or a check,
Okay.
whichever you prefer.
I went out for it, y'all. Like, Lulu was going to tear me apart if I didn't dress up. So she asked me like the whole time, like, are you going to be Elvis? Have you picked the costume? And I got on here a week early. I got on her last week. Like, where are you at, Lulu?
Oh my God, you were in costume last week?
Yeah, I was on camera.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for coming. This was really fun. And as we've said, we'll be putting it on YouTube and Facebook, and also hopefully doing some small clips just featuring all of the really tremendously informative information that y'all provided. Best of luck with the election. Keep us posted, and we will do follow-up. Our next forum is going to be November 22nd. That's a Tuesday night. We're always the fourth Tuesday now. And fourth Tuesday at 7 p.m. Smart Elections also needs your support, so please do go to smartelections.us and help us to
They
continue.
just lost $25.
And we can all say it in unison right now. We're gonna yell, "This is what democracy looks like," on the count of 3. 1, and then we're gonna close out the night. 1, 2, 3.
This is what democracy looks like.